Like it is kind of absurd how much money is
there
in
is
the
to
internet.
be made.
Who's the text from?
Pete Wentz,
From
Fall Out Boy.
90% of the economic factors that were great for our parents have gotten worse. This is one avenue of the economy and the world at large that is actually empowering for working people. Glass slipping.
Verb.
The art of occupying spaces that your station in life might indicate you don't yet belong in.
Think Cinderella at the ball.
Iowa Debris at the Golden Globes.
Me on a stadium tour. Me opening for Fall Out Boy in arenas is glass slipping. Like that is it.
Because it's a very like specific point in time, because it doesn't mean you don't belong. Like, and a lot of time you do. Most of the time you do actually belong in those spaces, but you're not comfortable in them yet.
Yeah.
Like you haven't spent enough time in that space to really own it in the way that, or the way you're owning it is still feels a little unstable.
Right. It's me actually walking in and trying to sign a record deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's the much more endearing version of imposter syndrome.
It's the positive version of imposter syndrome. It's like it's the aspirational version of imposter syndrome. Instead of like the negative, like, fuck, I can't do this, I'm not supposed to be here. It's like, okay, maybe you're not ready to be here, but here you are.
No, you're glass slipping along. Like, you're getting there.
Yeah, like let's put the dress on, let's put the shoes on, let's fucking go for it.
Like I said, it's a little unstable. You might be like balancing a wee bit, but fuck out of here with that imposter shit. Our goal with this is to demystify what it is like to make a career as a creative and show that it is possible. It's not easy, but it is possible. And there is real money being made. There is real path to livelihood.
And then it's not just a bunch of huge celebrities or a bunch of huge TikTokers or whatever. Like there are people our age and in our position in life who are working to do that. And we want to show you what the day-to-day of that actually looks like.
Yeah, how to navigate the day-to-day finances of it, like how to, like, common business practices or just like general entrepreneurial struggles.
And the ways that we've fucked up along the way as well.
Yeah, because we have fucked up a lot.
I'm absolutely dying over here.
I'm currently dying.
I'm in a bad spot.
But meant to honor the hustle.
Absolutely.
That can bring you to more lucrative heights in these industries.
And just an open conversation about, you know, not feeling like you have to put on a front or you have to put on a mask or you have to act like you have more than you do.
Yeah, just being honest about it. Because no one talks about the real numbers.
No one really is telling you what's going on.
Everyone, like, social media is also designed for flexing and like happy stories or incredibly sad stories. There's not
the middle in between and just the reality of it. You know, I'm going to tell you dead honest that like I have to ask my parents for help a lot, and I'm lucky enough to get to do that. But like it would be dishonest of me to sit here and act like everything that I've made on my music or working at my fucking retail job. It's just not the case. Like that just isn't a possibility for me.
Yeah.
So just the honesty of it is really important to us as well.
You want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, more than anything, actually. My name's Keaton. I am a musician. I went to school for musical theater, which is how Pete and I met. We did not go to the same school, but we went to neighboring schools. And I've spent my entire life as a creative person, as an actor and an artist. But I just sort of started on this musical journey. I'm in a band called Daisy Grenade. It's me and my best friend, Danny. And we've got 3 boys that tour with us, as well as, at this point, a fairly large crew. And I just started doing that about 2 years ago. We've been touring for only about a year, which feels insane to say. But we just got off, like, literally yesterday. I came home, finally, off of an arena tour with Fall Out Boy. So we've been grinding very steadily for the past several years. I think we started the band in, like, 2021. It'll be, like, 3 years in May. So it's fairly new, but we've been hitting it very, very hard. So that is kind of what I do. I live in Brooklyn. We're in my apartment right now. It's very cluttered because there's a lot of shit in it. Yeah, I live in Brooklyn, and that's pretty much my whole life. When I'm back from tour, I work at a boutique. It's great. It pays my bills fucking barely, but it does. And yeah, most of my life, I would say like a good 99% of my life is this band. So that's kind of what I do. Would you like to tell us about yourself, Pete?
Sure. I'm Peter. My name is Peter Scattini. I, like Keaton, am a reformed theater kid.
I like Keaton.
Oh, no.
She's great.
You're cool. Sorry. This is awkward now. But I much like Keaton, am a reformed theater kid and grew up performing, grew up acting, but from a really young age was also like posting. I started making YouTube videos when I was like 12 years old, doing Call of Duty content. My first viral video when I was
I didn't know that.
I was 13. I had my first viral video. It was like 400,000 views on a Call of Duty montage.
Wow. Toxic.
I made a couple $100, and
Wow.
but that was the thing. I made a couple $100. I was like 14, and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, what is this about?
And that started down like a long journey. It was funny. I got to college. I went to school for musical theater. Not a major I would recommend, but
Me neither, for the record.
I deleted or erased a lot of the videos I had put on the internet because I saw what theater kids were like watching videos on the internet of other people. And
you just mean like mean and nasty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just very mean and nasty.
Mean and nasty.
And I regret having done that now, because knowing what 5-10 years of like compounded views do on the internet, like those videos that had 400, 500,000 views then would have 2-3 million now.
Yeah.
And so I do wish I'd been more confident in that, but then I kind of shifted gears. I was still performing. I was doing content around performing on the internet. I was directing more. And then when I got out of school, I was doing a little bit of acting, doing a little bit of directing, whatever I could kind of find in the content world. I was making videos for educational companies and have kind of gone through every medium for posting. I had like at different times a compulsive need to share stuff online in a way that sometimes was healthy and sometimes was not, and slowly has become an actual career that is now, for the first time, like provided me very real financial stability. Right now I work in a content role for a larger content company, so they do entertainment and news style media. I'm a long form editor for them for YouTube and Patreon, and I clip out all their content for socials. So I'm in charge of their Instagram and their shorts and their clips and everything else.
I know you said it's time to be in front of the camera. It's time.
Sure. I've done a lot in front of the camera and like decided to consciously step away. Part of the reason I got this job was because I was doing a lot of content facing work. It started getting death threats, and someone sent me my parents' address.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? I already know, but do you want to talk about it?
Not really. Just I gained a following really fast over the course of maybe a year and a half, and I was doing political comedy, which was very charged for a lot of people. And I respect that it has to deal with a lot of people's lives, but it pissed a lot of people off in a way that became overwhelming very quickly. I don't think I stumbled into something that I wasn't really necessarily ready for. And suddenly I was getting like death threats and literally like my home address. Like I had to move because people were sending me my address in Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And so I kind of saw the dark side of what that internet can be, stepped very much out of the limelight. And I think part of reapproaching that in this content push or in making a podcast is deciding there is a healthier way we can do that, where hopefully we are less likely to get doxxed. Still make it a like fun enterprise that we can enjoy, make money off of, and turn into a business. Like we are very much treating this as a business endeavor, recognizing what is available to creators and to just people, entrepreneurs in the content space. Like there's so much money and attention, and that sounds cynical, or I don't even know. We live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, in New York.
I think the most, right?
And we have done every manner of job on the hustle in terms of
yes, indeed we have
servers, like
fitness instructors,
landscaping, like physical labor,
yeah, like literally everything under the sun,
retail, you name it. We've probably done. If you could make money doing it in New York, one of us probably done it.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a podcast for all those people who are out here hustling, but with a very specific lens, because there is this hustle, the digital online creation hustle, has not been around for a long time. It is relatively new, and the amount of money available in it is also kind of staggering. And I don't think people talk about the numbers very often or really recognize how much opportunity there is in it.
Totally. I'm with you on that.
We can't not acknowledge though that you also were a YouTube girly as a youngin.
Wait, I absolutely hate that I brought up your dirt, so you're bringing up mine.
Yeah,
like,
but also like,
fuck you.
But whether or not you were the one posting it on YouTube, like I think we met in college and became friends in college, but like I think I knew who you were because of YouTube before that.
Slay. Yeah, so I did
we're just gonna cut to Carrie right now. I hope you know. Like it's just gonna be you, and it's gonna be like an outward cut of just the view count and you screaming.
It's literally inescapable. I've done theater for a very long time, and I was doing professional theater. I'm from Seattle, so a lot of it was there. I did a Broadway show when I was like 12 to like 15, and then I went back to like finish out high school and like try to be normal. Didn't last very long. And I did a production of Carrie the musical in Seattle. And this is funny. I actually talked about this on a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast. And I talked about basically like the YouTube virality of it. Someone shot a pro shot of this and put it on YouTube, completely unbeknownst to me.
Well, which it also doesn't happen with a lot of theater in terms of...
It was like a regional theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it happened. I don't know who did it. I don't know who greenlit that. But anyway, so there was a pro shot of it.
Might have also... Was it greenlit? Like,
Probably not.
Because that's the thing. Is it on some random guy's YouTube channel, or is it like the Seattle
but it's like
whatever
a pro
theater?
shot, so it's like someone had to have gotten permission to get in there with a camera.
But they might have gotten permission to like shoot it for promotional materials, and then they were like, fuck
like
it.
B-roll. Yeah.
And like in the way that someone was just like, fuck it, I'm posting the whole thing.
Dude, I know, it's crazy. So I didn't even know kind of how viral it was on YouTube for a very long time. And then I kind of knew about it, and I was kind of like, I don't want any part of this. Partially because it just is not like my favorite thing I've ever done. And I also was like 16. I think a lot of people don't know that. I was like 16 when I did that. So it's like I was very young, and it also felt like a little bit violating. I've talked about this a little bit before, but like just a little bit, because I just didn't say yes to it. I didn't even know it was happening.
It's a very weird thing to have something like you were a part of, you were in this show, but like your expectation and understanding of your role in that was
so much
doing
greater.
it on stage.
Right, exactly.
And
it
that being it,
much
not
bigger
it
thing.
existing on the internet forever. And that's not even something like as a 16-year-old you can fathom.
Really fathom, yeah.
Or at that age of what the internet was compared to now.
I also was never just like a huge internet person. Like I was never just like on YouTube, like on Facebook. I didn't have
you
were.
Was.
Yeah.
I was 14 seeing the first era of like people playing video games and paying their way through college.
I know, that's so crazy to me.
Playing like Call of Duty on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it just was never something that I like someone else probably found it. I think probably Taylor, and like, you know, showed it to me. Taylor's also a comment warrior for me. When she sees mean shit about me on the internet, she's fucking
I
in
appreciate
there.
that.
I love it
like,
too.
That's
I'm like, I don't want to worry about
good,
it.
dedicated
It's a good
friend.
Yeah. She really is. She does it still to this day. I adore her.
That's incredible.
For that. But I think someone showed it to me or whatever, and I just kind of like wrote it off. Then like TikTok, people would send me TikToks like early on, like 2020, 2021, you know, whatever, that a sound from that was super viral, like millions of videos. And so like one day I think I was with EJ, and I was just like in my apartment, and I was like, should I make a video like reacting to this sound? Because I like didn't even know it was here. And it got like 800,000 views in like 2 hours. And I was like, okay. So then my personal TikTok became like very sort of revolving around that, and I hadn't even started the band yet, so like I was just like still kind of trying to do musical theater. I was like, oh great, like I'll be like a musical theater TikToker.
Yeah.
And it was fun, you know, especially because nothing was really happening. So I was just like making videos of me singing or whatever, and they would do like really well. And I gained like, I think I had like 40,000 followers. I like never post on there anymore because it just like nothing I want to talk about actually hits.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really weird for me. I have a very, very complicated relationship to that, I think, because it just didn't feel like it was under my control at all.
Yeah.
Yet it was like completely me. And
well, that's kind of the scary thing of that. We talk about the double-edged sword of the internet. Like,
right.
You can take control and really make a lot of yourself from it, but also it can spiral out of your control very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah.
And that like is part of the reason I took a step back from being front-facing of it.
Right.
It was like very quickly I was waking up to like, I had like InfoWars did a piece about me and the other person I made a video with.
I did not know that.
There's a 10-minute segment on the internet on InfoWars about me.
That's
with like my government name in it.
Literally
and like
horrifying. I'm so sorry.
And like waking up to like 15 emails because like that information went out. People Google me, find my website. Like it's just weird how
scary.
But also like I had a viral video that crashed a company's stock once. Like totally on accident.
Oh my
Spirit
God,
Airlines,
Spirit
baby.
Airlines. You were on Good Morning America for that, weren't you?
Yes.
That's
but
so crazy.
Wait,
for the people that don't know, Peter got a video of a bat flying out of a overhead compartment on a Spirit Airlines flight that went viral, and then he had to
I was working a summer job where I was touring with a company, and I had to fly back to New York for an audition for the weekend. And while I was on the flight back, there was a bat. Like there was 100%, like they opened a door and a bat flew out, and we were like, holy shit, there's a bat on this flight. Me, content
king, took his phone out.
Knowing immediately my brain, I'm like, I have to film this. I was working a content job at the time too.
Did you have your camera, or did you just film it on your phone?
And I got a great video. And I remember at the end of the flight attendants were like, thank you so much for dealing with this. We know this was like pretty crazy. Please don't let us be on Good Morning America tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'm like, I have this video that I've already typed out the post for. I know it's gonna go viral, and like it's gonna be me. And I was on Good Morning America the next day.
That is so fucking funny.
It wasn't long-term ramifications for the stock, but it did crash for like 5 days.
The stock. Yeah, no.
There was a noticeable dip in the 5 days following my video.
Spirit Airlines. Watch your back.
I got a free flight that I don't know if I ever used because I don't think I've flown to Spirit since then.
Yeah, why would you? No offense to them. Just kidding.
I was very broke. It was like the flight from Michigan to New York at 6 a.m. was like $80. It was sick.
That was crazy.
It was sick.
It was worth it. You got your money's worth with the bat. I feel like it's very easy to like obviously, it gets out of your control very quickly. And I think that was kind of my first intro into like kind of content creation in any way, where it's like, oh, you're going to kind of capitalize on this. And then you kind of learn how to like figure it out. And I know kind of now on my personal TikTok, obviously Daisy is very different, where it's like we've amassed a following for the thing that we do. So it's a little bit easier to know what's going to hit and not.
Well, and you have a very specific goal in mind with what you're creating.
Where like, on
you have a team
TikTok,
that is dedicated to doing that.
And knows what's going on.
What's going on, and is like creating an identity for that specific thing.
And I feel like, with my personal TikTok, I just like kind of didn't have a plan. But I mean, it's cool to see on like an artistic level. Like it's cool to see, people connect with that performance, because it's just like I was 16, like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, like whatever. And what's the most interesting part of it to me is the things that I was the most insecure about being filmed are like actually the parts that people have like really connected to the most. And I think that that's really nice, like the fact that I really just can't sing the end of the show, and so I like made a choice and was like, I'm gonna scream. It makes sense, like in the text, but I was like, whatever, like I'm just gonna do it. And I was so insecure about that, like being all over the internet, because I was like, this was like something that I struggled with. And it seems to me like that's the part of it that people actually really connect to. So it's cool. It's kind of healing in that way. And also kind of like, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it, but that's great.
Yeah.
You know
You're
at
peace with it now too. It's been long enough. And
a couple years ago when it started to hit and I was like doing podcasts about it, I was kind of like, fuck this 100%.
Well, I remember when you were starting to build your own personal TikTok with it, and you were pissed about it because you were like, this is the only thing that will go viral. I was like, here's the thing. You know you have a viral video anytime you use that sound.
Yeah, totally.
And that is a useful thing in your back pocket, whether or not you like it at this moment, or like whether or not it's something you want to utilize often. Whether or not actually there ever comes a time in your life where you need to use it again, you have it in your back pocket where you're like, this will get 20,000 likes.
And it's cool. I mean, it's like, it's nice to have. You know, it's sweet that people care about that. And I have so many people that come to Daisy shows and they're like, I did not know Carrie was in Daisy Grenade, which is so funny. Like sometimes randomly I'll just get like sent a TikTok what's like about me, like doing Carrie.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's funny.
That's so... I don't even know how to describe that.
It's
that's
very
crazy.
weird, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm at peace. Thank you.
Keaton, what are we doing here today?
We're starting a podcast, Pete. We're just two normal people having a conversation. Ultimately, it's just normal people, normal talking.
Of course. And why are we starting a podcast?
We're going to talk a little bit about just what it's like to be like creatives, young creatives, in we're in New York, but just anywhere. I mean, in the space of like the internet now, I mean, we come from very different sides of this, which I think is really interesting, where you're like video content creator and editor, a writer. You do so much. I just do music. That's all I do. So it's like coming from two different ends of the spectrum and just kind of talking about how, you know, how the internet, but today I guess we're going to talk a lot about how the internet has changed.
Well, the landscape for becoming, whether it's like commercially or just culturally successful, is entirely different because of the internet. There is a entirely new blueprint or methodology for
becoming famous. I mean,
becoming famous, but also there's so much money. Like it is kind of absurd how much money is
there
in
is
the
to
internet.
be made. Yeah.
And I think that is where
I spilled.
Oh no. But I think that's where this idea came from on a pure level of we're in the path and progress of working our way through those systems, sometimes successfully, sometimes not.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're seeing that money and sometimes we're not.
Right. Mostly not.
For the most part, I would say.
Me, mostly not. You sometimes.
I finally am seeing some money, which is great. I've seen like money sporadically, and this is the first time that I've seen consistent money from it. But there's like a million different ways you can do it that were not available 10 years ago even.
Right.
Or
especially
even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But the first pioneers of 10, 15 years ago in the new internet age are now starting to be like huge contenders in the world, whether that's like Mr. Beast all the way to like Justin Bieber, like people who used internet platforms to elevate themselves in ways that were never...
A lot of it's YouTube, I feel like, too. Like a lot of those like early YouTubers are like really starting to like hit it in a way that's like very consistent.
I think YouTube was the first place where there was real money.
Right.
Like now you can get some money on TikTok, you can get some money on brands.
And just to be clear, like we're not just talking about video content creators. We're talking about like the entire sort of like spectrum of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, no,
actors, we're talking about musicians, we're talking about comedians,
graphic designers,
podcasters.
Yeah, podcasters.
Yeah.
This is a job that is people's career now.
Oh yeah.
And life.
Absolutely.
Like podcaster is the first title next to their
I think
like,
about
biography.
like Hannah Berner and Paige DeZorbo. I don't know if you know them. They have a podcast called Giggly Squad that we love, but they were on reality TV. But even when they were, this cracks me up, when they're on reality TV, their title, where it's like their job, podcaster.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's their entire. I mean, Hannah Berner is now like a huge comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her. I'm a giggler. That's what they call their fans. But you know, she's doing a Netflix special now, and she started on reality TV. Podcast got big, and because she's hilarious, and like, you know what I mean. So I think it's like,
well, yeah. I mean, even trying to explain my job. I work as a video editor and in content. Trying to explain that to my parents, who worked in like finance and real estate, or their friends who are all like in their 60s.
It's like a completely different. It's like it's a new industry, really. I mean, new in the last several years, but still, it's like where you're able to make the kind of ceiling for money of doing that kind of thing is so fucking high now.
Yeah, well, it feels like there was like a .com boom in the early 2000s with the internet, and that bubble kind of crashed, and then it built itself back up, and then in the last 10 years, there's been a renewed, for at least on the entertainment side, but also just business in general, on the content world, where it doesn't matter if you're promoting your music, your comedy, your general personality, or your garden business. Like there is a whole new world. Content. Yes. Yeah. And where 20 years ago, if you were the one with the website, you could probably take advantage of the market. Now, if you were the person with like a poppin' content team or just like a fun personality,
Jamie,
or
who's sitting right there, poppin' content team.
We love you, Jamie. I met Jamie today, but we appreciate her.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's like everyone who is an artist or just trying to get a business off the ground, whether that's in, we're kind of focusing in because it's what we do on entertainment, but in general, what your real job sort of, when it boils down to it, is content creation, because that's where your business is going to pop, and like that is so new to everybody.
Well, it's just created the barriers to entry have changed entirely.
Totally.
Where previously in most industries, it was controlled by a few rich and powerful people. Right. If you think about whether it's acting, whether it's music, whether it's these major studios had so much power, and they still do to a certain degree.
Yeah,
but
totally.
If one of those 5, 10, 15 people in positions of power didn't decide you were going to be the person they elevated, you weren't going to be seen by anyone. You weren't going to be able to enter the space. Versus now, you can build up your own audience entirely on your own. And from that, you can go into a negotiating room opposite like studio executives at Amazon or Netflix with something to bring to the table, with like leverage.
Also, like, what's so interesting is like it is a lot of these young people who are taking advantage of this, and not in a bad way. I mean, in a positive way, like, you know, making, whether it's music or whatever, making their own money that no one else is taking a cut of, and walking into these mostly older white men in these big rooms, and who don't understand that, who don't understand how it works, and are looking for like a formula that works. And these young kids have it. They know how to do it. You know what I mean? So that like not only on like a financial level, but like on a knowledge level, are coming in with more to give. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is funny, even seeing how the landscape has changed in the last 3 years of content jobs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my work since I graduated college, so about the last 5 years I've been in New York, has been content to some degree.
Yeah.
Whether it's shooting videos and putting together stuff for like Facebook.
Look at the way I'm holding this mic right now.
There you go. Good shit.
So crazy.
That in itself is content. But promoting on Instagram, promoting on Facebook, people even 5 years ago didn't understand the value of those markets. So it was my job to pitch to a company why it was important for them to advertise their company on Facebook.
That's so interesting.
And then once they see the returns, it's like, okay,
this is what we're doing now.
Yes, this is the new market, or this is worth investing. Even when I was 22, 23, convincing someone to invest $500 in a like
an
content advertising that was not traditional media, TV, radio. It was not something most people can conceptualize. Now, like I got a DM earlier today, or an email from someone earlier today that was like $60,000 to $70,000 a year YouTube editor job, and I was like, sorry, you have to pay me more if you want me to do that job for you.
Yeah, totally.
Like, and 2 years ago, if someone had emailed me that, I would have been like, where can I sign up? Where do you need me to move?
Right.
Like the landscape has shifted so quickly.
Yeah. And like, I think, you know, what we're trying to kind of get into is how it sort of affects the people, mostly younger people. I mean, not always, but we're talking sort of about like the younger creative side of this, and how it affects being in those rooms when maybe you're not totally prepared or ready to be in those kinds of rooms, because this really can happen overnight, which is like not necessarily a new concept, but I think
it can happen by accident now.
It also can happen by accident.
Like there have been people who have become viral or created entire like business models on accident. Like just where
it's like, oh, this is what I'm doing now because this is hitting.
And it was really just like something you made on a whim, or while you were drunk, or like while you were with friends.
Right.
And it has become like you said, it vaults people into rooms that they never would have been able to get to before, or now have to contend with feeling like
I feeling like sort of out of place, or maybe not ready for, I don't know. Yeah, just not ready for this kind of like virality is the word that I'm thinking of, but it's like this kind of like immediate overnight success, or this idea that now what you have that may have just been some sort of creative venture, or maybe not, a business, like it becomes a business so quickly because everything is monetized on the internet, and because now you have this sort of bargaining power. And I think I'm trying to kind of reframe, as a musician, I'm kind of trying to reframe. I think a lot of people get on the internet or on a podcast or whatever and talk about how like fucked up the new like TikTok marketing is. And like, yeah, there are downsides. Of course there are downsides. But I think trying to make it as positive as possible, where you're like, the kind of access that you have to these things is so massive and different, where you can make something in your bedroom and then all of a sudden you're making $60K on Spotify a month, you know? Yeah, we have so many stories like that.
Well, and you think about where music, sick. I mean, the music industry for so long has been pretty fucked up. Oh, it's in terms of,
I mean, entertainment on the whole, but music is extremely exploitative.
And in terms of who is making the money from music being made, it is very often the artists are so far down the list getting paid, and it's a fraction of a percentage of what they are generating. And any deal, even half a decade ago, you signed with a record label, is going to be them basically owning you for half decade of your life, a decade of your life. You see Taylor Swift is still getting like her masters back and re-recording things. And those are for some of the biggest stars in the world. On this minute level, I don't even know what you would have to be scraping at to actually earn some money for yourself. And now you might not meet with the label till after you've, on accident or on purpose, generated 10, 15, 50 grand by yourself online.
I think that's like a lot of the time, and I can only speak for myself, that's not the case with me, but I think a huge amount of the time that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at somebody who hits something viral on TikTok, a song or whatever. A song is what I'm referring to, and they're making enough money to where someone wants a piece of it. And I think that a lot of these older people in power, specifically in music, still don't really know. I mean, streaming, first of all, changed everything, right? And then now we have TikTok, which the levels of virality on that are
insane.
Just
they're kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, you like some random kid can put on and 20 million people see it in 3 hours. Like, that's not normal.
Well, and that can clear you thousands, tens of thousands,
and then
like,
put that to stream. Like, it's crazy. So it's like,
but if you think about it too, where if you were someone with no money, you're making music, you're trying to make it work, and a studio says, we will finance your project for $100,000 or $10,000 even, right, and you don't have anything to your name, you're going to sign the 360 deal.
Yeah,
and they're going to own every aspect of what you do. Where if even one of these things pops, that singular viral thing can pay you 50 grand.
Right.
And suddenly with 50 grand in your pocket, you don't have to sell your life away.
Right.
Like, doesn't mean you have a ton of negotiating power, but you have something that says, you know what, maybe I'm not going to give you my life rights.
Right. Totally. I mean,
Universal.
I think it's like, yeah. And then, okay, like, this is interesting. Speaking of Universal pulling all their music from TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's like, this has been the marketing scheme for music for the last, let's say, 3 years, maybe 4, but like TikTok really got big in 2020, like during the pandemic, I feel like.
Yeah, it was what was it called before it was TikTok? It was Musical.ly, yeah. And it was kind of more niche, at least with older generations. Like, I think it had still caught on with Gen Z, but it wasn't until,
I wasn't like on that.
Like, I downloaded it in March 2020, like a week before the pandemic started. It was just starting to pop off, and then I feel like it was supercharged because of the pandemic.
I was like anti. I was like, I'm not downloading this fucking app. I'm not doing it. And then I downloaded it.
My like content whore ass was like, I'm absolutely downloading TikTok.
I was like, I can't. And then it was like just hours in quarantine.
For me, it was one of the first or second videos I posted on TikTok was I had been vlogging in college for a little while, and I posted a 1-minute clip that had done really well when I was on YouTube. And it got like 2,000 likes. And
that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of actual view numbers, other than a couple things I made when I was like 14, it was the most viral success I'd ever had. Yeah. And it was like my second day on the app. And I was like,
you're like, oh, this is crazy.
Well, I didn't realize the ease of access. And like the difference between something like YouTube and TikTok is that you could get $20 for 1,000 views on YouTube with the right CPM, with the right, if you're talking about the right topic, if you're talking about like money or finance or something on YouTube, you can make a lot of money.
Right.
Versus on TikTok, like you get 1 million views and they'll pay you $50. Like the views don't mean as much on the platform, but the access is insane.
Yeah, crazy.
Like,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it ultimately, maybe not ultimately, but I think it for the most part is pretty wonderful that it's given access to a lot of these people. And like I said, I'm coming from a music standpoint, and I've met a lot of musicians that were TikTokers first, and then have now had this access to create art that maybe I would say likely did not have the access to before, or like maybe it was a thread of an idea, but then with all this access to people that are willing to help them with these things, have made some really incredible art, and like that's a good thing.
And I really think it comes down to the people who are really killing it in the modern entertainment space are people who have been able to use those different apps, like audience building platforms or places where you can get access as trampolines to other things.
Totally.
Like it started, I feel like, on a certain degree with YouTube, but then especially with Vine into YouTube, like the people on Vine realized there was no money to be made on Vine because it was all 5 to 7 seconds. So they started making stuff on YouTube. And suddenly you have a whole generation of Liza Koshy and David Dobrik and all these people who turned into legitimate business. Like Liza Koshy is interviewing the president of the United States, and David Dobrik has a show on Discovery. Like leveraged their audience from the first place and used it as a springboard into something that was a legitimate business.
Yeah, oh my God. And I think about like on my end of things, like I think about people like Jaden Hossler and Nessa Barrett, who are both, I've never met Nessa, but I'm a huge fan. I've met Jaden multiple times, played a couple shows with him, and I adore him. One of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And had this just massive platform on TikTok in that like really early, not early, but like that kind of heyday of like big Gen Z TikTokers.
Yeah.
And has now launched into what I think will be like an absolutely massive music career. And I just because he's the nicest guy in the world, I'm so happy for him, but also because the music is very good. And yeah, he has, you know, access to a lot of people. I think he signed to DTA, which is Travis Barker's label, and obviously a lot of help in those arenas, and it's churning out some really good work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the sort of like disdain that I think that avenue gets for being like, oh, that's a TikToker or whatever. Like, are the TikTokers at the Grammys or whatever? I'm like, let them be at the Grammys.
But I also think that that's still just from like, people love to hate on whatever the new means is, because I don't think that like people think of Justin Bieber as a YouTuber anymore, because
I know, but that's like, he was like a YouTuber.
He was the king of YouTube. He had the most views on YouTube until Mr. Beast became a like different world supernova. Like Justin Bieber was the king of YouTube in its outset, and was the first real musical success story where it was like, he became an international superstar.
Where it was like the first time I remember thinking, oh, you can like become a pop star from YouTube.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Actually,
he was the first proof of the model, but now no one would ever think of him as like a YouTuber.
Yeah, he's just like the world's biggest pop star. I was and still am, such a believer.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
You're a believer.
Yeah.
I loved him.
I had the Swoop for a little while when I was like 13 or 14.
What?
The Swoop.
Oh, yeah.
Like fucking, yeah.
I think the Swoop is going to come back.
Everything comes back. Everything works in cycles.
I'm thinking the Swoop is coming back.
You should bring it back.
Give
it a little.
I can't do the Swoop.
I think you could do it.
Thanks. What if I just had like a full-blown Justin Bieber haircut?
That would be terrifying.
That would be so crazy.
Doing that and then like a punk rock set would be crazy.
Can you imagine the flip?
It would probably go viral.
I'm sure it would. There's like a little clip that Jamie took of me with my like hair parted very to the side. It was giving like very scene. But yeah, I think those people, like I think they get a lot of hate just because like, yeah, it is like a newer thing that people don't quite understand. And I also, on the converse of that, feel like they get taken advantage of a lot because they are hitting something that some of these record execs or, you know, film studios or whatever don't necessarily understand how to do.
I think it's pretty easy for a 17-year-old, 18-year-old who suddenly stumbles into an audience of millions of people to
get taken advantage of.
Yeah, you have someone who's been in LA and Hollywood for 20, 30, 40 years and just sees money bags like and says, "Oh, I can give you whatever."
And that's not, you know, listen, that's not always how it happens. Like there are good people in all of these industries, but like it is primarily on basically all ends like a predatory model where it's going to try to take advantage. Theater's the same way. It's going to try to take advantage of people and kids who are just out of college or didn't go to college or whatever and don't necessarily know what they're looking for in some of these rooms, which is like kind of what we're talking about.
The only problem because I agree with you 100%. The one difference on a theater level is there has never been money in theater.
Right.
Like there are very few spaces. The
ceiling is much lower.
Yeah, there's like 500 living wage jobs in the theater industry in total in the city of New York.
So true.
And so that's tough. But that's the crazy thing about these content generation jobs or anything else like that. Like there is no real cap on the amount of money.
Yeah, you could be a fucking billionaire tomorrow.
Yeah, there are at least like Mr. Beast companies, like he has, I don't know how many companies. He's 25.
He's 25?
Yes.
For some reason, I like imagine him as being like 40.
There was like a story 2 years ago about him turning down $1 billion for his YouTube channel.
Wow.
And
$1 billion?
Yeah. And now
what kind of position do you have to be in to turn down $1 billion?
A 23-year-old with 100 million subscribers. But also he scaled out multiple other businesses because he's pulling Super Bowl numbers for every video he creates. He's getting upwards of 100, 150 million. So advertisers can't even afford to advertise with him anymore, to the point where he had to start a chocolate company in part so he could use his own company to pay his own advertisements.
That's literally insane.
Yeah. But so I do think there is some level of, obviously a lot of young people that come into this can then get taken advantage. There are predatory aspects of any business where money is made.
Right.
But it also can be incredibly empowering to
Totally.
someone who is able to build up this audience for themselves, have the negotiating power,
And to come to
sway
the
in a
table with
room.
something and say like, what can you do for me that I cannot do for myself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're in this position of power and you're in this position of privilege where you're like, I'm making my own money on this. Like, how can you help me? Which ultimately is kind of how it should be.
Absolutely should
You know
be.
what I mean? Where it's like, you're like, these people I'm signing something or whatever. You're giving me money for something that I'm generating. I am generating this content. I'm generating this art, whatever it is. And like, I need support or help in this like in this way. And how are you going to serve that for me? But a lot of the time you're walking into something and being like, I need this so bad to be able to generate the art that I have. Whereas like when you're walking in, you're like, I got this. What can you do for me? Is like so badass.
Well, and I think that's a big part of the reason we wanted to start this podcast.
Yeah.
Because while the landscape has shifted, the conversation around the landscape hasn't. And I don't think there's a lot of transparency about how you go into these rooms, how you negotiate for yourself, what it is like talking through a brand deal, or what it is like pricing out what 1,000 views is worth, or what 10,000 views is worth, or what to sell a master of a song. And like, what if that goes viral, the profit potential actually is
triples and quadruples and whatever. But like, yeah. And you know, I can talk only from my own experience here, because I'm very new to the music industry as well. So it's like, I don't know a lot of the answers to these questions, and I'll be very transparent about that. But like, yeah, like I said, I'm very, very new to this industry. So, you know, my understanding of it is very limited. And I came into it very late, whereas I feel like a lot of people have been working a long time to try to be in some of the spaces that I'm in. And I'm very, very lucky to be in them. However, like, I'm like learning on the fly, and I'm the kind of person that like every time I'm in a situation I don't know what's going on, I try to like take in as much information so that the next time I can be like, I've logged this.
Well, and that said, you were skyrocketing through these spaces.
Thank you.
From when I think about where we were watching Daisy Grenade perform 2 years ago.
Yeah.
To when it was Make Your Son Famous.
Yeah.
To now.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. It is unreal, the trajectory. And so I think that is part of the value, though, too. And we are navigating these spaces in real time. Like,
yeah, totally.
6 months ago, I was getting like intermittently every couple weeks, like $500 from content. And like now I've negotiated myself like a real salary. Yeah. And I'm making like 6 figures doing content.
Yeah.
And that reality can change really fast for people. Yeah. If you have the skill set, if you're in the right market, it's unreal how quickly it can change.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm in a very different spot, you know, like I make essentially almost $0 from what I'm doing right now, which is fine. And it's what we signed up for. Listen, if you are trying to make money, music is not the industry for you. It takes a very long time. And I like to think about it in the way that I explain it to like my parents and stuff is like, it's like a small business. Like if you were doing like a brick and mortar small business, no one would expect you to profit for like several years, because
a lot of small businesses, it's like if you're profiting by year 2, if you're in the positive by year 2, that's
if you're
insane.
breaking even by year 2, you're in a really good spot. And like music is no different. Like it is a small business, and I don't, like I said, like the reality is I would do it forever for no money, because I love it. Would I like to be in a comfortable space?
But
soon?
The reality is like you can't do it forever for no money.
No,
like
you
would like to, and that's I think where a lot of artists ultimately get taken advantage of is
they will do it because they love it.
Yeah, they would do it for no money, and they want so badly to be a part of something that feels artistically fulfilling. But being able to recognize, this is what I have to do to make this sustainable. This is how I can actually build a happy and healthy, comfortable life. Is really tough.
It's hard, and sometimes feels completely impossible. I mean, like I am in a space right now where it's like the only way that I'm able to like continue living in New York, and like I'm gonna have to move out of this apartment very soon because we're getting priced out, is that I have, you know, my family is able to help me out when I need it. You know, they're not just out here financing, like they haven't touched the business at all. That runs completely separate. But like personally, I'm able to ask for help when I need it, and that is like just transparently the only way that I'm able to do this. And I understand like the kind of privilege that puts me in.
Well, yeah, I mean, it speaks to the fact that so many people
don't have that.
Yeah, and get faced up on, because you guys are on year 2 of are literally playing stadium tours and playing arenas and playing with huge bands, and still are not seeing any money.
Going back to my day job on Thursday.
Yes.
Like,
and so trying to see, especially on a music end, like trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel, or without taking on massive amounts of debt, or just living an entirely like vagrant style, like broke lifestyle.
Yeah. And it's like, you have to get, I love when musicians talk about this too, because like I've heard more people starting to kind of like be a little bit more transparent about like what their life actually looks like on a day-to-day. And it's like, it's so hard because you have to find, if you have to work, which I think a lot of us do. And also it's exactly like why we started this podcast, because nobody wants to talk about the fact that they're going to play 8 sold out stadium shows and then go back to their day job. Like, it feels bad or wrong, or like you're like, wait, this shouldn't be how this is.
But also it speaks to something like fundamentally that is off about that. Like there's something fundamentally speaks to the imbalance in the music industry as a whole.
That has nothing to do with the person to person
where it's
basis.
Like you are playing like SoFi Stadium and have 40,000 people in attendance, and then you're like, okay, back to my retail job.
Right.
Like within a week.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like a jolt. I mean, emotionally, it's like a whole different thing. But like financially, like that's just what has to happen. Like my parents are willing to help me out, but they would never let me like not go back to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and it's also like even being in a position of luck, having your parents help, it's not like that's sustainable forever.
No, I mean, every time I have to ask for help, it's sort of like okay, like how are we going to figure this out kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, you have to find a job, especially as a musician, if you're going to be touring. It's the same with an actor too, where it's like, you have to be able to leave every so often or whatever. And for me, I leave I would say like consistently about every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's like, which is,
most jobs are not allowing you to do that.
I'm very lucky to have the job that I do that is very, very supportive of me. But that's few and far between. You know what I mean? And I also don't really make enough money, and I don't want to leave because they've been so supportive, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to find something else that's going to let me just up and fuck off for 2 months or 3 months or whatever. Yeah. So it's just like this thing, like I literally texted my mom and my dad the other day where I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me, and I feel like it's impossible. I know it's not, but it feels impossible sometimes. It really does. And so like, that being said, kind of what we're talking about, like the ceiling, the cap for it, the cap money wise for being a musician, especially in like a pop space, is so massive.
Well, that was, my brother used to like to joke, especially when I was really trying to pursue being an actor as my primary hustle. He would always joke that my ceiling and floor of earnings for the family were by far the highest and lowest.
Right,
where
exactly.
It's like, oh yeah, at the ceiling you could really hit it.
Yeah.
Have 5 houses in 5 countries.
Literally bankrupt.
Yeah, I was in tremendous debt 6 months ago.
Right.
Like
you've been hitting it with the debt.
If it weren't for working 3 jobs for a while and then kind of lucking my way into a more consistent content job based on however many years of skill set, I would still be in debt and working that way out for another few months. But how does it feel to be broke?
Amazing
Is it hard? No.
Yeah, it's hell. It's hell on earth. Just kidding.
As a former broke bitch myself, how does it feel to currently still be a broke bitch?
I feel like you're just fucking razzing me right now.
Yeah, I'm still in debt. Like I'm not out of my hole yet.
Listen, like,
I'm just closer.
Like I said, I think I said this earlier. Like, if you want to make money, music is not the industry for you. Get out now. It's a fucking grind. It's like, it's a small business, and you have to think of it that way, or at least I do, to make it make sense as to why you're not making money. My mom said that she sat down with a friend of hers recently, and she was like, oh my God, like Daisy Knight's doing so well. She must just be making so much money. And my mom was like, she hasn't made a fucking dime.
Is that a tough thing for you, like when you see random people? Because I think of like the world of Instagram and everything else.
Right.
I like don't intake much anymore, but like whenever I see people from college or wherever around the city, when I run into them, they're always like a little more up with what I'm doing just based on social media stuff than I am, it feels like. And is that a weird thing to like meet that reality where everyone's like, oh my God, you were killing it. You were doing this tour with followers.
Especially with musical theater people, something I get every time I'm out. I don't really go out with musical theater people, but when I do, someone always says this. They go, "Hey, rock star." It makes me want to blow my brains out. But yeah, I think people are, especially because of like musical theater, just and the way that those people are, everyone's always so fucking up to date.
But that's its
You know
own
what I mean?
compulsion. But even just on
general,
the level of like the internet, like you see people, you're playing for hundreds, if not thousands of people, depending on whether you're doing amphitheaters or you're doing arenas.
Right.
Those people clearly paid money for the tickets. That money's going somewhere. And it's a weird reality that I think a lot of people aren't in tune with. That
just like
especially on the lower totem pole of those tours,
Yeah.
a lot of those musicians are not clearing anything, or might be clearing their expenses, or a lot of times are going into debt with the label to go.
mean, for us, like a huge success is if we break even. I think in general, actually, in the music industry, if you break even on tour, especially, we're only a year into touring, right? Like our first tour was this time last year. We started, I think, March 4th or something like that last year. So breaking even a year in is massive fucking success. And
did you break even on this last tour?
I don't know yet.
Do you think you did?
The accountants are not done yet. No.
Accountant.
My boyfriend's our tour manager. He would know. But that takes like to like settle everything on tour, it takes like several weeks. We have like business managers and like all the accounting from the road has to get done. So then that goes to them, and then they have to do all the fucking spreadsheets and blah 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 blah. No, I do not think we broke even on this tour. I think that we did really well. And listen, we've actually never like lost our asses so bad. We do really well in merch usually. Danny and I spend a lot of time when we can, not on the arena tours, but on the smaller tours, a lot of time standing out there, meeting people and signing stuff and getting bracelets and like just literally to
maybe break even,
maybe try to get people to buy more
or
merch.
like maybe be able to pay the band a couple $100 extra.
Yeah. But everyone, I mean, the reality is that everyone on our team does it either for free, Jamie, or for very, very, very cheap. And we're lucky because we have friends that are willing to do that in hopes that one day that payday will come. And I do believe that it will. And because everyone is so committed to that. However, like we pay them absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's a lot of buy-in on the prospect
idea.
And because you know the height. I mean, even you're on a stadium tour, you can see the heights in front of you. Like Fall Out Boy has made it.
And it's easier to do that when you have a little bit more of like something in front of you where you're like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this in real time sort of pay off, not monetarily, but like opportunity wise. And I also think like,
well, and you're cutting your teeth in a stadium.
Totally.
Like in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
Getting used to that environment, getting used to being in front of people.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot. It takes a lot of
all the way on down from we're loading into an arena to we're running sound in an arena where
yeah. And like I said, yeah, everybody is, fairly not new to music, but new to doing that kind of touring.
That scale.
So everybody is kind of on the same, and at least in our case, and we're very, very, very lucky with the crew that we have. It's only 8 of us. So it's like the 5 band, me, Danny, Adrian, Eli, and Pete, and then Jamie doing content, James doing tour managing, and then Andy doing front of house. So it's, I mean, for all intents and purposes, for a tour that size, the crew is very, very small, but that is like bare bones necessity. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like there's going to become a point soon or like in the distant future where it has to be the like past break even point? Because like a lot of people are buying in and sacrificing a lot in order for that opportunity, like in a way that's really cool and noble, but at a certain point, like the rubber meets the road on a pure financial level.
I mean everybody, basically everybody except for, and Jamie on this tour, but everybody except for me and Danny get paid by the show. They get paid absolutely criminally low. It is simply all we can afford, and the reality of it is if somebody doesn't want to do it for that rate, we will go without it. Yeah. Like, it's not like we would just hire someone else at $100 or $125 a show or whatever.
You're just tracking out your drums now.
We would just put it in the tracks, which is fucking hell, and I never want to have to do that.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky to have people that are willing to do that. But, like, it's never the situation of, like, oh, well, there's, like, there's a pot of money that we're not touching over here. Like, every dollar is, like, down to the fucking wire every time.
Well, and yeah, I think a lot of people, when they go out to support their favorite band or even support an up-and-coming band, they don't necessarily understand the expense that is
touring
every part of the tour, whether it's like
it's everything,
living out of the van and gas and hotels, or like even when you're sharing hotel rooms and feeding everyone
Yeah.
and
making sure that everyone's at least a little bit comfortable to make it not hellish. You know?
Tipping out any of the staff
tipping out the monitor person, tipping out the lighting guy, tipping out anyone who's doing literally anything for you.
Yeah, and everyone is doing it for like, again, a criminally low rate just to make the thing happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, yeah, like I said, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but like to me, touring with your friends is worth that, is worth any struggle, any issues you have, whatever, because A, people are willing to buy into it because they love you, and B, like we had a really easy time this time because we were able to just sit down, the 8 of us, and talk through literally anything. Like, and I think that I mean I hope and I hope that we've created enough of the space where if someone was like, and it has happened, where people have been like, I can't make this work anymore, you know, and I never hold that against them. I get it. It is extraordinarily difficult, and especially if you can't make it work financially, I can't help. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can't be like, okay, cool. Well, here's
here's the $10,000 in my back pocket.
That I've been like saving. No. If I had it, I would give it. Yeah. You know, and that's been a struggle also to kind of convey.
Well, you're buying in on pure belief, which is like incredible.
I mean, it's realistically everybody is. The label side, managers, agents, everybody is, because we don't have a fucking dime to our name.
Yeah, and the label is investing tens of thousands of dollars on that belief.
Right.
So you at least you have lucky. Some social proof. It's lucky, but it also is like that's more actual reassurance than a lot of bands have going out on tour, because a lot of people are doing it purely on like whim or belief, and like I think that I don't want to call it delusion because I don't think that's fair, but like that, like
it's a little delusion.
But it's any industry, whether you want to be like a pro athlete or a professional actor or like the best in your field, you have to have a little bit of that delusion that is like, I'm great and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anything that's in an unstable field.
Totally.
And at least you guys have had different factors that are elevating you up now, label support. You're being brought on with these major bands, but that belief has to take you a long way before the finances catch up.
Yeah. that's kind of it. Like, yeah, it does. And I don't know when.
Well, what is the path to, where does the income come from when it comes?
Merch is a huge one. Streaming, obviously. And, you know, under the label, we released our EP, but we've only put out like 3 songs. And we've done fairly well just on those 3 songs. So it's also, you know, you got paid a guarantee when you go on tour as an opener or as a direct support, meaning they basically calculate how many tickets they think that you are worth per city. So it's like $750 or $500, or like we've done tours for like $250 or whatever when nobody knew who the fuck we were. And largely people are overestimating that, I would say. Yeah. As a means to be like, we know this is really expensive to do it. Will you come out and do this? Like, do I think that we're worth $1,000 in fucking Minnesota? No. Do I think I could sell $1,000 worth of tickets at $25 a ticket? No. But like, you know, maybe on a fucking really good day. But also a band goes out and knows they need an opener in a lot of these cases. You want to build out a full bill, so you have to invest. If you are on the top line of that, it's like, yeah, you are the one generating a lot of the revenue, but you have to. Same with like, why does a comedy show bring an opener out? Because if you're asking someone to invest or like to come to the theater for 2 hours and spend $50, right?
You want it to be a good show, and so you're like, we need to extend this out. We want it to be a longer
and we've been really lucky with the tours that we've gotten to go out and open for, because we've never headlined before, and that'll be an interesting one as well, because I don't really know how the finances go on a headliner. I don't understand how much you get from the gate. I don't know how much you have to put down to buy out the night. Like, I have no idea. So that'll be really interesting when that does happen. But as an opener, you know, you're relying a lot on the guarantee, but then you have to pay out your agents from that. A lot of your revenue comes from merch, but also you have to pay for whatever merch you printed. We are lucky enough to have some label tour support. I'll be honest, I don't know how much of that is like left, and I don't know exactly like how it gets parsed out. From what I understand, it's like LP to LP, like EP1, LP1 has like a budget there. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, once it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't like replenish. Like, there's no like beep beep more button. Yeah, you know what I mean. And that's also not considering like a gear budget, where it's like we had to buy an in-ear rig that like my manager had to like beg people to give us money for, where it's like we can't put them in stadiums if they don't have in-ear monitors, like, which is crazy. And I think that there probably were people out there like, come on, go for it. You can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's like, no, I actually can't hear.
Yeah, it's like, I actually
there
can't
are
hear.
7,000 people in front of me and
I
I cannot hear anything.
Right.
I just hear white noise and screaming.
Right. No, literally. Or just like delay.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're also, like I said, we're in a very, very lucky position where we do have a label that's very, very supportive of us. And I also have managers that are extremely, they advocate the fuck out of us. Like, they are so on it. And they're also very concerned with not putting us in too much debt. They're very concerned with
do you know how much debt the band is in right now?
A lot. I don't know like how much numbers wise we're in debt to the label. I could tell you we've probably got like $3,000 of credit card debt, which all in all is not bad. I know we owe money to a lot of people. I don't know exactly how that's parsed out or exactly what.
But you've got people for that, which is nice.
Yeah, I do have people for that.
But it is a weird thing because like that is where you guys have reached, and what I think is not typical for bands who have, because you're on year 2 of Daisy Grenade, year 3, is not typical necessarily. Is you have a full team of people who believe in you now,
yeah,
and
100%.
so you have people handling the financial side. You have people who are helping book out the tours, who are pitching you new tours,
right?
Who are on all elements of the production.
It's interesting because it's like, yeah, absolutely. And we have like we have a massive fucking team, which is incredible. And they're all wonderful. And they're also like 90% women, which is so fucking slay. But I think where my issue comes in is like how the tour finances, because band finances I don't really, I mean, I know about, but I'm not the one like fucking crunching the numbers. You know what I mean? There have been times where we've been like, card declined. What's the deal? You know what I mean? But it's how the touring finances affect my personal finances because they don't really overlap. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that I see online a lot people, just whether it's bands or artists in general, they'll be like, why don't you come to Minneapolis and do these tours?
'Cause I'm broke.
And it's sad because it's like, obviously, I have fans in these other cities. I would love to go to those places. But like logistically, that's not only flying me, the band or the team out to that place, but we have to book a theater that probably has a minimum there. Yeah,
we've never flown. We drove from New York City to Portland,
that's
Oregon.
The thing. On your cheap level,
in 4 days.
You got to do it. You got to rent a van, drive across, but then you also.
Can you imagine flying the fucking drums? That'd be like $1,400.
Yeah, those people have to sleep somewhere. Then you have to not only pay the minimum on a theater to get the space booked, but you have to book it out enough that becomes somewhat break-even profit level, which means you have to sell hundreds of tickets. Like the logistics of any individual band trying to do that by themselves, or any individual comic, like any person who might be selling tickets for an event, are huge. And that's with an operation of 1 or 3. Yeah, you add 5 people, 8 people.
Yeah, the overhead for touring is absolutely massive.
And
that's what it is, right? It's called overhead.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good. Yes. That's great.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's like, it's difficult to explain to people too, especially because I don't handle, like, I couldn't tell you exactly the number of things. Like, I know where a lot of that money goes, but I'm not the one making those transactions, which I'm fucking so grateful for.
While the band itself is going into debt, you're not necessarily the one deciding how much debt the band takes on.
No, that's not.
That's more the label because of their investment and how much they're willing to give you.
I don't even know if it's the label. It's more like my managers and my business managers sort of taking on those decision-making processes.
But then on your own personal level, how much, and I guess this is individual to individual question within your band, like how much debt personally are you going to have to take on or be willing to take on as you pursue the thing?
You just mean like how much am I like financially suffering personally from this?
Yeah.
Greatly.
Do you feel like there's because it feels like
it's like a glorified hobby
you've been on
at this point.
But it feels like since you've been on the Daisy train, like this is the path you're pursuing.
Chain, if you will.
But this is the path you're pursuing. It's not like I'm going to reach a certain level of financial ruin and then that's going to cause me to go get a wage
9-to-5 job, or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I have been good about my like personal debt. I haven't taken on too much where I'm like not, I feel okay. I will say I owe Con Edison a lot of money right now.
Fuck Con Edison.
But also
they have a racket. Like that is like where I want antitrust laws to like, I'm like, get your shit in gear.
I know, it's actually crazy.
I don't know if it's Eric Adams. I don't know if it's the
Who do I
state
talk
government.
to about Con Ed?
I don't know if it is the federal government. I'm like, this is antitrust needs to come out the utility industry. Like, I'm even
It's so
okay to a
crazy.
certain degree with like, I get they don't want to hit the antitrust. This is such a non sequitur, but like, I get they don't want to hit the antitrust with Apple because they're like, people's pensions are tied up in the S&P 500. Sure, fuck Con Edison.
I don't know what he's talking about right now.
Let's nationalize the grid. I don't even care if the government is in control of these things. Make it cheaper.
You fell and became Einstein for a second.
Maybe. I don't really know. There's gonna be so many people who are like, oh, really? That wouldn't work. The government's incompetent. That would
Well,
never.
That's okay because I understood
Your bill
about
wouldn't actually be cheaper.
3% of what you just
It's
said.
cool.
but
We're cutting all of this.
but I
like it's not
believe and
making it
trust
into
you.
the final cut.
I just mean like my personal finances have greatly suffered and I've taken hits probably where I shouldn't have, and right now I'm kind of in a place of trying to minimize my finances while I'm not on tour, which living in this apartment, living in this neighborhood is not doing. I'm gonna have to get another job. I think I'm gonna maybe bartend, which I've never done before, but my friend works at a restaurant that he said he'd hire me at, so I'm gonna try that. And just like I said, yeah, I'll try to save as much as I can, or just bank as much as I can, and downsize a little bit, so we're not, shelling out as much money as we are month to month.
But maybe this podcast hits a big. We're
That's
gonna
my
be
goal.
Printing money. We'll be very financially. What's the right word? Well, we'll be very transparent with the finances of this podcast. I think it's kind of the plan.
I won't be transparent.
I'll be transparent. I'm gonna be asking you.
I'm gonna lie to your faces.
It's cool. I'm gonna be handling the money though, so it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, that's not my goal to handle money. I don't want to be in charge of my own money. I don't want to be in charge of any business money. I like for people to tell me what I can and can't spend, and then I want them to figure it out for me. Numbers freak me out. Like as soon as I see numbers on a page, I'm like, I'm out. My brain shuts off.
See, I'm the exact opposite.
I know you are.
I fucking.
You do
love
math in your head like no one I've ever seen in my life.
But that's also like I don't know. I was fine in other subjects of school, but I was like good at math.
Guy.
And like math is just like a frame through which I understand things. So like
I've had to like sort of get my shit together a little bit about it just with the band and stuff and like understanding kind of a little bit more about the financial side of things and not just be like reckless abandon because you just simply can't.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, like if you run out of money and you're not making any money, how are you going to tour? If you run out of label support or if you don't have label support, a lot of bands are like completely independent and they've done all these DIY tours where they just fucking rip it on their own money. And we're not in a position and have never been in a position where that would be possible. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's it. That's like a feat in itself. If you can make that sustainable on DIY, like that's so impressive.
I know a lot of people who do, and it's fucking impressive as hell. And then you hit it after you've got it on your own money and you're making all that yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're not paying other people. I mean, I'm sure you're paying some other people, but you know what I mean?
You're paying the overhead. So it's really like once you hit the break even point, but for every different, like if you're going on a 5-city tour, the break even point, if you're booking out venues, it's got to be at least
much lower, right?
I don't know. Like it. Yeah, it's tough.
It's just crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And like I said, we're in a very, 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 very lucky position. And even still, I have not made a single dime. So I think about people who are in not as lucky a position as us or doesn't have as much help and support. And if you're making it work literally at all, I'm like, you're a superhero. Like it is a hard fucking business. Not even to mention just like the emotional toll that it takes on you to be on the road for that long.
Yeah, to be on the road for that long. And that's decoupling the emotional toll it takes on tying your financial like aspirations or value to your artistic work.
Yeah.
Because that in itself is its own emotional toll, because even just trying to reconcile like, is what I'm making financially worth it? Or is it?
I think you really have to convince yourself that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's based on, tangible things that you've seen grow from it, or just based on like a little bit of a delulu belief. You know what I mean?
It's a little bit of both. I think
it has to be both.
I think you have to have that healthy delusion to even pursue it in the first place, but you also have to be in tune with the reality of what the industry is and what you're getting into, because there are paths to make money, but it's very specific types of paths and specific types of hustles that you can pursue.
I literally did a brand deal with a vibrator brand.
Slay.
And they paid me for it. And I was like, maybe this doesn't work with my brand. I think it does, for the record.
How much did they pay you?
I think they paid me $200 for a post.
Okay. On to like how many followers?
What?
To how many followers?
To mine?
Yeah.
I think I had like maybe 12,000 at that time.
Okay. So pretty standard. I feel like you get between 200 and 600 depending on, for like a vibrator, that makes sense. I have never advertised a vibrator, but I do know on.
You can. Let me put you in touch. But it's like I said, like it wasn't like my favorite thing. Not my favorite thing. It was fun. It wasn't something that I was like, oh, I want to do this. You know what I mean? But like they reached out and I was kind of like, yeah, like this kind of fits my vibe and fits my
money.
vibe.
$200 is $200.
Yeah. And like it's a post.
Yeah.
I think my parents were probably like,
it's like an incredibly low lift.
Yeah. So
did they put any limits on, like it has to stay up for a certain amount of time?
I don't think so.
The few brand deals I was doing when I was still in like poster mode all the time, I would always like, if they didn't delineate it, like within 30 days it was gone. It was like the money cleared. I did it for 30 days. And then a couple of people said you have to keep it up for a certain amount of days or whatever.
I don't think they did, but I kept it up because I was kind of like, this is funny. At a certain point, they're a really nice company, and I like their.
That's
product.
the thing too. If you want a long-term relationship with it, then I would be more transparent about like this is what the expectation is.
Yeah.
I also knew someone who, because a lot of companies, especially if you get any following on TikTok or Instagram, will email you and just be like, "Hey, we'll send you a free product. Will you make a video about it?" And I had a friend who, she probably had like 500,000 followers, and she used to just tell every company, "Oh hell yeah, I'll make a video." Get them to send the product. Like, fuck around with it if she liked it or not, but like never made a single video.
Oh, I think that's fucked up.
I don't. I think it's fucked up that the company is saying, "Hey,
do work for us for the product.
Do work for us. Put this in front of your 500,000 followers for free advertising." Like, that baseline should be a couple $100. Like,
yeah, I guess,
if you were gonna pay on like a radio broadcast to get to 1,000 people, you're gonna be paying a couple $100 minimum.
Right.
Like,
so it's just like free labor kind of.
Yeah, it's free advertising that you're expecting. And like some people are cool with that, to get a free product. Like that's enough payment. But like if the product's worth $30,
I don't think anyone's ever asked us to do that. We get some free like we've gotten some clothing from some really cool, like mostly smaller companies though, that aren't really asking anything in return. Just like we will tag them when we wear their stuff. Yeah. And we do wear their stuff.
Well,
but
I
it's
think
not
that's
like
cool too.
You know, you have to do this. We're not sending it to you. Or
well, and I know influencers too. One of the people who I want to be a guest on here, I
know influencers.
But a girl I know who, she was moving and she had 100,000, couple 100,000 followers. She just was like furnishing her apartment by reaching out to different companies being like, "Hey, I'm moving. I'm going to make a move with me vlog. Can I have a mattress?
Yeah.
Can I have a bed frame? And I'll mention your company
cunty
in my video." And
I'm going to do that when I move.
Yeah, it's a good 100% great strategy.
Love it.
You'll be like, it'll be on the Daisy accounts, it'll be on my accounts. Move with me. But it belies the question and gets us into this point of, you have to find in these spaces or in these hustles where the money is. And right now,
the money's in content.
And in a podcast.
And in a podcast. But in like what's interesting to me is like on like a branding level or whatever, like where the money actually is in celebrity, is in fame. Because where the money is in brand deals.
Well, it's in attention, I think.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe at least the content entertainment economy. It is, how well can you command attention? Because if you can command attention, then we can run ads on that attention.
Exactly.
We can sell shirts to that attention.
Right.
We can like sell ideas to
like
that attention.
Not necessarily even about the whatever you do as an art form. It's about like, how interesting are you as a human?
Yeah.
And that's so interesting also because it's like, that has completely shifted our idea of like fame and celebrity, right? Like we didn't have access in like the 90s. We didn't have access to people like Drew Barrymore and Jennifer Aniston in the way that we do now. Mm-hmm. And even those people who are famous then sort of don't have the same sort of social media presence. We're talking about like celebrities now, like the Kardashians or like the D'Amelios or like something like that. Like these like sort of empires that they've built off of cult of personality, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And like, and having that access is really having that access to those people is really what is gonna make the money. And
people have been able to create entire brands based purely off personality.
Yeah.
Like the strength of an Emma Chamberlain's content or like Dylan Mulvaney's content are like on them having compelling personalities,
right?
And being enjoyable just to watch and spend time with.
Yeah.
And you think about like the model of streaming in general is just
hanging out with someone,
and sitting with maybe for 8 hours someone at their computer.
I wonder if you think that has anything to do with the pandemic a little bit, where like that sort of kind of content sort of popped off.
Streaming
when people
definitely
were very like isolated and lonely.
Streaming, I think 100%, and you see it even in the numbers now, where the numbers are not as good as they were during the pandemic.
Because you can
it
actually see your friends.
It hit new peaks, but then it kind of plateaued. And you see certain people bust out of that mold, like Kai Cenat and other people who are creating really dedicated content, but like Kai is basically doing a variety show now,
right,
as a means to keep people entertained and keep things different and keep an audience for that amount of time. But yeah, the pandemic changed everything on that model, especially because if you're just sitting alone in your house for
you want to hang out with
an
someone.
entire day, you can't leave or be social.
Right.
And suddenly there's a community of people who are all rallying around single creator or like the Among Us craze and all that stuff, where it was just
you
like,
guys were really into that.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was great. Like it was like, but it was also like, even the appeal of the streams, suddenly I'm watching 8 different people's perspective playing a game. I'm like the omniscient narrator watching, because I know who's the villain in this and I can track along.
Yeah. And I think that spans over like any sort of entertainment format, right? Like if you are compelling, if your content, if your brand as a person is compelling, like that's kind of where the money is. Like, well, it's certainly not in streaming music.
Yeah, and it wasn't that like singularly compelling people didn't break through in the previous models. They did. You see people like Robin Williams or like other cults of personality that were really captivating, but the way that that person became famous previously or monetized that personality was like studio executives or casting directors or whoever picking that person, presenting them. And it took 5, like 10, 15 rich people in like hoity-toity rooms to decide that was going to be.
Whereas now you can do it by yourself.
Yeah. Now you can do it entirely by yourself without ever interacting with another person. I know a bunch of creators that are entirely do-it-yourself, or they are one-man or one-woman bands, where they are filming, doing the audio, editing, posting, controlling every aspect of it. And that in itself can become an entirely different type of business now.
Yeah, I really like that you said it was empowering, because I think it really can be. I think it can be very like, singular. I mean, people always say like as an artist, the most fulfilling thing you can do is create your own work. And now it's like, not only can you create your own work, you can create your own an entire business model.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's ultimately a good thing. I think it's positive. I do.
Yeah. No,
I just feel like it gets a lot of shit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, anything that's new, anything that is making certain people money, anything that is getting that much attention is going to elicit positive and negative response. Like, I don't think you can become...
Especially with the cap of people seeing it, you know? Like, anytime we have a video go viral, like, I always say, like, once it hits, like, 100,000 views, people are going to start telling you to kill yourself.
Well, you also think about how human nature changes that way. Like, each new medium, whether that's the radio or television or any of these things, present to a new, just mass of audience. Like, previously... there was no means where you could just be in your house and suddenly 1 million people had access to you.
I know.
And so that in itself can be really empowering. It can be a thing that can make you a ton of money, or it can change your life, get you out of your circumstances. Yeah, there's no world where 100 people are in a room and all 100 like you.
What is that, Lady Gaga?
Oh yeah, there can be 100.
And every one of them is Bradley Cooper.
Unless every single one is Bradley Cooper, not everyone's gonna like you. And so you scale that to 1 million people. You add to the fact that 40% of them probably like fundamentally disagree with the type of person you are.
Yeah.
20% of them probably hate women. Like
probably more
30%.
Like, 35, 40.
And it has been, for the most part, an incredibly empowering thing.
Yeah, very.
And we would like to focus on that empowering, the
positive aspect of it. Yeah.
And how an audience can empower themselves through that.
Absolutely.
If you are someone who wants to exist in these spaces, or create a space for yourself somewhere on the internet, or maybe just make a little money on the side, or help someone else make a little money on the side.
Totally.
It is a acknowledgement of the new economy that has popped up out of it, and trying to find different ways that people can take advantage of it, celebrate the people who are, and celebrate what you can do for yourself.
And just know that, like, in any situation, there is possibility, and there is
I mean, too, 90% of the economic factors that were great for our parents have gotten worse. Like, it is way harder to buy a house for our generation. It is way harder to have healthcare, like to buy a car. Everything is becoming more expensive. And for the most part, like, wages haven't increased. All of these things, the conditions are not getting better. And this is one avenue of the economy and the world at large that is actually empowering for working people and actually provides a mean to rise above the station you're in life, or that you see yourself in life, where previously, if you were stuck in your dead-end job and you didn't have the skills to get out of it, that's where you were. And now there's people going viral from their dead-end job talking about how much they hate their dead-end job.
Yeah, totally.
And from that, they're turning that into a hustle that gets them out of their shitty apartment. It gets them out of their landlord situation. Like, you think about just on I have a bad interaction with a business. I have a bad interaction with my landlord. It used to be not even 10, 15 years ago. It's like, okay, well, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah.
And now you want to, like, just post a little picture or a video of what happened. And it's like, oh, I have 30,000 people behind me now, actually, who are all, like, going to war with my landlord.
Yeah. And there's 4 lawyers that have offered to help me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In 2020, I got sued by a major news company for impersonating that news company back when I was a content creator myself. And
is this when the FBI showed up?
Yes. Nice. Around the same time. That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But when that happened, I posted a TikTok and was like, hey, I think I'm going to get sued. And within 24 hours, I had a lawyer.
Yeah.
And within 48 hours, it was legally resolved.
That is whack-a-doodle.
God love the internet.
It's whack-a-doodle time. I mean, even me with, like, the landlord shit that we have been through previously and also are going through, everyone's like, post a TikTok, you know? And I'm lucky in the place that, you know, I think both of us at that time had a fairly, like, a mildly large following on the internet. Yeah. So it was, like, easy to kind of be like, oh, I have 30,000 people. This will go straight to their For You page. Yeah, someone. Or whatever.
Well, no, this was on my 24th birthday. I had probably like 80, 100,000 followers at the time on TikTok. And I was like, statistically, if I make a video and just say, hey, give me money, it's my birthday, someone's going to give me money.
Did it work? Did you do
it? It pissed my mom off so much. She was like, why are you asking for money on the internet?
My mom would kill me.
But I made like $350 that day.
Damn.
It was like 40 people sent me money.
I mean, on that same level though, like, I mean, for like a birthday, like LOL, whatever, give it a shot. Oh my God. One time someone bought me a jacket because I was like, I like this jacket, but I can't afford it. Someone Venmoed me $75. Crazy.
But also at the time, like, I had 100,000 or so, maybe 200,000 followers on TikTok, but like, I didn't have an audience in other places, so I wasn't really making a lot of money on that audience. Like, that was the biggest payday I got that month from content.
Those two examples are like silly little fun examples, but like on like a mutual aid standpoint, like when there are people that really need help, I see these things all the time where it's like, this person is in this situation. Like, if everybody, they have 10,000 followers, if every one of their followers Venmos them $1,
yeah,
it'll be helpful. And like, that is crazy, which kind of brings me to the point of like, these like online communities are actually like so can trust me, it can be so bad, but also can be so wonderful. Like, you have these little pockets that are just really supportive and cool, and I think that's cool. Is what I was gonna say. Nice. I think that's really beautiful. Like, I think it can be really beautiful for people, just like the engagement level between people that maybe they never would have found otherwise.
Yeah, I think it serves positive and negative, because I think in a lot of ways people are building communities that are really incredible. You can interact with people you never would have otherwise if you're in an insular community. I think it also has worked in the inverse, where it's like, oh, it used to be a really socially downtrodden thing to like be a white supremacist or a Nazi.
Right. I mean, that
and
also
now
very
like
much
you're like,
exists.
oh, I can find those other people but behind anonymous servers online.
I think what I'm getting at is just like there is always obviously a double-edged sword to all of these things that we're talking about. There are negatives and positive. What we are looking to focus on is sort of the positive aspect of it, and
how you can wield that sword to your advantage.
Totally.
Because like life is tough. Yeah. And it's like, if you have a sword that you can use it. It's better than getting stabbed.
If you have a sword that you can use it.
Yeah.
Use it, girl.
Use it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's been crazy. Starting a band sort of like right after everything sort of moved to TikTok and watching kind of how that plays and doesn't play. And
how much do you think that has affected how you guys exist, like on a production level? Because obviously what people think of with a band is what music do they have? That's how we associate with any band in our mind. But how much of your brain do you think in terms of production of content of any kind, bunching music in with content, like how much of that would you say is actual music production and how much of it is the other side of advertising?
I think when we started, it was very different than where we're at now. When we started, it was like, we didn't have anything. You know what I mean? We hadn't really written anything. Like we'd written, like by the time Danny and I were like calling ourselves a band, we had like one song written. So a lot of those probably the first year and a half, 2 years were focused solely on sort of like creating a sound and creating, deciding what we wanted to be like fundamentally and whatever. Now that we're like a little bit more settled and we have kind of an idea of like what the brand is and what like, what visually it looks like, because we didn't know for a very long time, and what the general sort of like sound and vibe is. With 2 EPs out, a lot of it is geared towards content creation. Mm-hmm. That also helps because we brought on Jamie, who does like 99.9% of all of our content, except for when we make really stupid TikToks that she's like, please take the watermark off of this. And like, and Hannah also, who is our creative director, who kind of like sort of funnels those ideas into something that's like viewable or like an aesthetic vibe or whatever. So we have a lot of help on that aspect. But when we're creating music, it's actually very difficult to get into a space where you're just thinking about the music. You are thinking about how it's getting promoted. You're thinking about what we can clip, thinking about how we can use it.
Absolutely.
Whatever. And I think I'm trying, I was very negative about it for a very long time, I think, where I was like, I don't want to fucking do this. Like, this is just like such an extra. I got into music because I want to be a musician, not because I want to be a content creator and whatever. But I think that if you actually just sort of end up lumping them in together, it doesn't feel as excruciating, where you're kind of like, this is all a part of the music now. And that's just the way that it is. Like,
it's the way the industry is.
It is. And if you, listen, there are people who don't want to do that. And I support that. I think that's beautiful. But you have to kind of, if you're going the route that we are going, which again isn't a lot of like we're like pop punk emo, but like we exist kind of in like a pop space.
Well, and you are pursuing a commercially successful band.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that is the end goal. Like I have plenty of respect for
wanting to
people who do not want to participate in
that
all of like bullshit rituals you have to participate in to be a part of like the music industry at large.
More fucking power to you.
More power to you. But if you want to be commercially successful in these spaces, you
kind of have to like eat shit a little bit. You know what I mean?
Or at least you have to play the game to a certain degree. And like there are exceptions to the rule. There's exceptions to every rule. But the majority of people who are going to find commercial viability in that are going to do so through the mechanisms that allow you to do so.
Absolutely. And I think, trying to think about it more as just like, not even, I think thinking about it as like a necessary evil is also like really negative. Like, I don't like, that puts you in a position of being like, I have to do this no matter what. Where it's like, if you can think about the things that you can create with these avenues, you know what I mean?
I like to think of it from a lens of empowerment simply because.
Where it's like, we can create something that's so visually stimulating and so like fucking, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like, immersive on the internet with like not a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have, first of all, we have an amazing team, which is like 90% of it. But we wouldn't have had that had we not had any label support. So it's like everything is just sort of means to an end. And like, we're talking about an LP now. I don't know when it's going to happen, but the next step for us would likely be an LP. And like what we want to do with that is like very immersive, very conceptual, very visual, all of these things. And we have a lot of ways to do that now with like, you could do like an immersive website and you could do, all these TikTok campaigns and the whole thing could be on YouTube. It could be like a long form YouTube thing or whatever. And you have all these things. Whereas like in the past, like if you're, I don't really know if this is true, but if like you're making a music video, you want it to be like on MTV.
Yeah.
And that's
we were talking about this
way.
before of in terms of different means through which you can get there. Like 10 years ago, if you wanted to be a stand-up comedian, 15 years ago, your path to popularity or mainstream appeal was being the host of a show, getting on Letterman, or being on SNL. And that was kind of it.
Yeah, like otherwise NBC paid program.
Yeah, like it was, otherwise you were not getting seen by anyone.
Right.
You could be grinding for years and years and still not bust through.
Yeah.
And now, like, you see someone like, love him or hate him, Matt Rife,
Hate him.
who basically rode on two characteristics, like one being attractive, two being very good at crowd work, like not even really doing stand-up, but just interacting with people in the audience.
Yeah.
And those clips go mega viral.
I saw so many of those before I like knew who he was.
And I still, even after like the different controversies he's dealt with, like where I see him on the internet is through those clips. But it doesn't speak to the quality of what you're putting out once you get this platform.
I get the point you're making for sure.
It is totally modified how you get there.
Yeah. Almost, I would say across the board, every single industry.
Mm-hmm.
Acting, like film acting, like may not be the same way.
It depends. You don't see it as often, but you see it's to a certain degree. If you can get a production team, I've seen people like one of my friends, Anna Garcia made
oh my God, love her.
Made a web series in college, used that web series to basically build up a full reel, gained some following on the internet, like doing comedy stuff, but now she's in every commercial. She's
in every commercial I've ever seen.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Brilliant.
Huge fan.
But so I think there are means as actors where it's like you can get your personality more known. You can, but that takes some production help where it's like you need a director on board. I think
we're getting at sort of that more like generative content idea where it's like when the thing that you're making is the product.
You just have to be entrepreneurial in the same way.
Yeah.
And so if it's a means to get your short film out or your other thing that then you can turn into something longer form.
Totally.
It's there.
It's there. The path is there.
And that concludes the first episode of Glass Slipping. If you've made it this far, you are either a fan or asleep. So I appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, follow us on different platforms. We're going to be releasing a new episode every Friday. And as a little treat for those who made it to the end, right after we finished filming, Keaton got a kind of crazy text message. And so I'm just going to show you that. Have a nice week. Thanks for watching. Wait, just explain really quickly what you were just asked to do.
So I just got a text. I had like fucking 45.
Who's the text from?
Pete Wentz.
From?
Fall Out Boy.
Very, very casual thing to have happen.
And he's like, do you want to come on stage and sing with us at our MSG show?
Cool.
To which I said,
yes.
Yes, of course. Actually, I said, what the fuck is what I said. And then I said yes.
Great. So just clarifying, I did say yes.
So he's like, I got to check out the vibe on it because I want to make sure it's happening. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Just imagining the world where you're like, no.
I'm like, I'm good. Too big for me. I might get lost.
Okay, great. I think that this is Glass Slipping. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.